Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Great to have you with us today. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Great pre-owned inventory and obviously a fabulous service department. Great sales staff, great deals to be had. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf and online at sunburymotors.com. All right, play-by-play call of the day. Big play in the Eastern Michigan game last night. Maybe this is when the power outage occurred.
Yeah. A little technical difficulty here. The computer has frozen on me.
You know, the 2 years that the suit was there, not once did this ever happen. Well, maybe not. Okay. All right. Let's look. It was last week I got a phone call. 45 minutes later, the phone call's is over. My wife says to me, Kathy looks at me, she says, that was Johnny, wasn't it? And I said, yeah. She says, for 45 minutes, that's all you did was laugh. So with that, we bring in Johnny Holiday, the play-by-play voice of Maryland football, basketball. Hello, my friend.
This program is being recorded for quality purposes.
I'm not surprised.
I'd just like to put that out front before we even start.
Well, absolutely. Of course, we're going to play this back repeatedly because, again, we need the boost.
Yeah. Is any portion of this going to be in the Toyota Sports Desk?
It'll be. It could be Toyota. It could be whatever car dealership of the day.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. There's one question before we even continue. The fee situation we discussed.
Yes. Remember the last time you were on?
Yeah. Same thing?
Yeah. Remember the exact fee you received?
Zippo. Nada.
Well, I don't want to have the show portrayed as being cheap.
He gets Zippos for doing this?
No. You don't have to portray it as being cheap. No, that's an understatement. I think anybody listening to you knows. Here we go. I swear this wasn't going to happen.
I know.
I was going to be very serious, and it's all business. It's football, and that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to play games and have fun, and I want to keep with the format, okay? I want to get in and get out.
All right, no problem. We'll do it your way.
Well, I said I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that.
My friend, how are you? I hope you're doing great.
Steve, I can't wait to not see you this week.
And you know what? And you're the 500th person just this week to say that to me.
Oh, man. You know, I mean, seriously, I look forward so much to coming up to Penn State because of the fans, because I get a chance to see you and we get a chance to, laugh for like a half an hour. Yeah. And it's such a great atmosphere, but how eerie not to have anybody there and how eerie to have to do the games. Yeah. We don't travel. I gotta look at a picture which is sent by your video people and do the game from a wonderful, wonderful room. It's a closet in the media room at Xfinity Center in College Park.
Which I'm familiar with. I know exactly what room you're in.
Yep, exactly. So it's you do what you got to do it, but it's not fun doing it like that.
No. I'll say this. Here's the other part that Maryland lost out on last Friday night. Those fans would have eaten up that comeback, and
that's the one thing that first came to mind. The just running around looking for somebody to hug.
Yeah.
And they're hugging their own teammates. I mean, it's such an eerie feeling. No band. The Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem, was played on the video board from a game from last year with plenty of fans there. Yeah. And it's so unusual.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Now, what was great to see him watching Maryland play, I want to start with Taulia Tagovailoa. I actually do have it. Taulia Tagovailoa. Taulia.
Taulia Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa.
Yeah, Tagovailoa. Now you got me saying Tagovailoa. If you say it quickly, nobody understands.
So
they let it go.
So let's start with Tua's brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. He comes in from Alabama. Many people thought he could win the job. Now that he has it, what presence does he bring to that position that Mike Locksley was hoping for?
Well, it's the first time, I think. We've had some good quarterbacks in the past.
Yeah.
But probably the last outstanding guy was C.J. Brown.
Yeah.
And he's noted for being in that win up there in 2014.
Yep.
When Brad Craddock had the field goal to win it in the final 30 seconds or something like that. And he was a quarterback in that team. And nobody's had the kind of numbers since C.J. had them in 2014. Before that, you got to go way back to where Scott McBride was playing. Yeah. And I'm sure, as James Franklin says, every head coach says, you got to have a good quarterback that you can connect with, you can believe in. He can believe in you. And quarterback and the head coach are locked together at the hip, basically. Yeah. And what happened with Taulia against Northwestern was, I don't think it was not unexpected, because the first game, all the hype of him coming in here, winning the quarterback job, his name, his brother, him and Locksley recruited him at Alabama, all these things together put an enormous amount of pressure on this kid, I think, anyhow. And he didn't have a good game. He was the first guy, Steve, to come back. They got together on Sunday in the team house to have their meeting. He was there an hour before everybody else, and said to Locke, hey, Coach, what could I do to improve upon what I just did the other day in my first game? I wasn't happy. You weren't happy. Nobody was. I want to correct those mistakes, and that's what you want in a quarterback. And I think his confidence factor that he brings to the team, and everybody loves this kid. I mean, he's got personality. He's always smiling. And now I'm giving you this secondhand because we're not allowed to. Right. There's no contact with the players. But he's just a great kid, and he's got that certain something going for him, besides having the name, that he is a confident leader. And, boy, that's what you got to have. Now, granted, Minnesota and Penn State are two different animals. This will be a huge, huge test for him, come Saturday, to see what he can do against a team like yours and the veterans that they got and the defense they got. So if he can, play well Saturday, I think it'll be another giant step forward. But I know he's probably saying to himself, okay, I had 3 touchdown passes, I ran for 2, I had a pretty good game. Yeah. He set records in that game. I can do better. And that's what you want from a quarterback, always improving.
Jake Funk is another guy where if you love sports, you feel great for somebody that has overcome a lot to turn in a really good performance, which he did. He had 221 Friday night. His dad played here at Penn State. His grandfather played basketball here at Penn State. So obviously there's some meaning for him in this. What have you seen in his development to get him back on track after all the injuries he's had?
I was really surprised to see the way he ran against Minnesota. Because not only did he have an ACL last year that cut his season short after only 3 games, he tore it in the Temple game, and he was rolling in that game. I think he had, like 60 yards or something like that before he got hurt in the game. But he had an ACL the previous year. He's had back-to-back ACL that ended his season. Yeah. He's had shoulder injuries. He's had sprained ankles. He's had all kinds of things. He's a fifth-year senior. He already got his degree, and he worked his tail off to get that starting spot. He had never started a game at Maryland until the Northwestern game. Never. And he had an average game. He had something like 40, 50 yards against Northwestern. He had never had more than 92 yards in any game. And that was Syracuse last year when Maryland blew out the old Orangemen. So to see the way he came back and to see how quickly he ran, Steve, that's the thing that impressed me and CJ and Lamar Jordan. His cutting ability was there. His acceleration was there. His speed was there to the inside and to the outside. He loves to go up the middle, and he loves to take on linebackers and show that even though he's 5'11", whatever he is, 6 feet maybe, that he's tougher than they are. And he's always said that nobody thought I could do this, nobody thought I could do that.
Right.
And he's got that chip on his shoulder. He said, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And how many people thought he could come back from an ACL, 2 of them, and be a starting running back and be ranked after 2 games among the top running backs in the country? And he's also, Steve, he's the nicest kid. You want to be around him. He's just got that aura about him of leadership, and he knows that the younger guys in this team, and it's a young team.
Yeah.
It's like Penn State. They're going to follow him, and he sets a good example for young people. He's just an all-around guy that you'd love to have in your team.
And he will be one of the captains this week, by the way, for Maryland.
Yeah, he will be,
Yeah. Defensively, one thing I noticed about your team defensively, Johnny, and I'm not talking about schematics here, but in terms of you talking.
Wait a minute, are you actually watching the defense in the game?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, you're not going off notes. See, okay. Wow, I didn't know. I didn't realize you actually watched what they were doing on defense. Because I have a spotter that does that for me.
I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it is all me.
I'm with you.
Defensively, something I did notice, and this is not schematic, but it's in terms of filling the roster. There are a lot of transfers on that team, JC guys and so forth. Was it part of the philosophy that at least to get going with the program, to get a couple of older guys but talented guys in there, even though they're not experienced at this level?
I think so. I think he needed to. And if you look at that first game, I didn't even recognize any of these guys playing defense because they were all new. He brought in a new front. They went from the 3-4 in the first game. They switched to a 4-3 in the second game.
Yep. So
you got Okwanu playing at a defensive tackle. You got Ami Fanau playing at the nose tackle. You got Latrez Rogers in there who played last year. But he brought in a couple of junior college kids that went to Independence Community College in Kansas, and one kid was like all-conference second team, Independence, Messiah Nasilikite, which I know you'll love him. He's a good player.
Yeah.
And these guys have all brought experience. They brought the transfer from North Carolina State, Joe Belatapelli, at one of the linebacker spots. So I think it's really helped to have veteran guys come in who, even though they played at the junior college level, they made an impact when they were playing at places like Independence Community College, which I'm really not familiar with. But these kids have done a good job at the junior college level, and a couple of them are starting. I mean, that's how much of a problem they had defensively last year in stopping people. Now they still got to get the numbers down. It was a little better defensively against Minnesota than it was against Northwestern, but this will be a whole different ball game on Saturday.
What do you think that last Friday night did emotionally for this football team and for the football program? Because of the way it played out.
Well, you couldn't script it. You're 19-point underdogs. Minnesota comes in. They're a much better team, I thought, than Northwestern was. Better quarterback in Tanner Morgan than Peyton Ramsey was, but I was proven wrong in that. And then to come down and to win it the way they did in overtime on a touchdown by Tagovailoa, and the extra point by Joe Petrino. And who thinks that their extra point, they come back and score in overtime as well. So it's all tied up. Or it's 1 point shy of being tied up. And the kid who'd made 178 consecutive extra points in high school and hadn't missed one at Minnesota, Lamont Jordan says as they break the huddle to go light up for the point after, he says, he's due to shank one. And he did. And on one hand, you feel sorry for the kid. But it's a great win regardless. And if you could have seen the celebration on the field, it was really a sight to see. And one of the first guys to get over to the kid that missed the extra point was our kicker, Joe Petrino. Yeah. And they can commiserate together with, I know what you're going through. I've done it myself, and I think it's just a tremendous boost for them. But that only lasts for 24 hours, all that euphoria that they go through. Sure. Because you don't want to think about that. You want to think about coming up to your place.
Well, and Joseph Petrino is also coming off an emotional high in that game as well. With the injuries he's had and so forth, he had never in a game made one longer than 40 yards. And then he nails the 51-yarder. For him, that had to be a great boost. Also, it'd be a great boost for that sideline.
Well, he missed a 51-yarder off the goalpost. Right. It hit the goalpost and bounced off to the left. He missed one earlier in the game. But when you look at his record, if you remember in high school, he kicked a 60-yarder with a left foot and a 50-yarder with a right foot. Yeah. So I said to Joe, let me see if I understand this. You kick a 60-yarder with your left foot. Oh, yes, sir. And you kick a 50-yarder with your right foot. Yes, sir. So that tells me that you've got strength in both legs. Yes, sir. More strength in the left foot than the right foot? Apparently so, yes, sir. Okay, Joe. The nicest kid in the world from down in Georgia. He has no expression. I mean, everything is the same. He just never breaks concentration. It was, and one of the nice things, really an emotional moment I thought after the game was the team's back in the locker room, and they're getting ready to. I'm sure they're celebrating. We're waiting for Loxley to come on to break the game down with us. Out of the locker room comes Jake Funk. He's got his football pants on. He's got his shoes still on. He's got his shoulder pads off and just the white shirt underneath it. He's got a cell phone up to his ear, goes out to about the 40-yard line and sits down and talks on that phone for probably 5 minutes. And there were 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 guys coming out of the locker room to run down to put their arms around him, give him a big hug and a big, a fist bump. And then they went back in the locker room, and he slowly gets up, and he walks back to the locker room after talking to whoever he was visiting with. Really a nice sight to see.
Yeah. Well, that was a great win, and I'm looking forward to the game on Saturday. It's just too bad you won't be here because, again, it was my turn to buy dinner. But, it's a pandemic. How could I have counted on that?
Well, here's what we do. Lido Pizza is one of our sponsors, and they bring over to us a couple of big Lido pizzas for every game. Yeah. Do you have one up there in State College?
Do we have
Lido's?
one up there? No, we do not.
Okay. But, I will send you in the mail a couple of slices. What do you have, pepperoni or sausage?
Pepperoni would be great. If you could do that, yeah. That'd be fine.
I will send you a couple of slices in the mail. I'll put it in the mail. But we won't get it until Saturday. So I'll put it in the mail on like Monday.
Yeah, I should get it by Tuesday.
And you should get it by Wednesday or Thursday of next week. And let me know how it goes.
Yeah. And if it turns out I'm not doing the game the week after, even though Penn State's playing, It could be a tip-off. It didn't go as well as you'd hoped.
Yeah, you can tell them it was sent by Don Fisher.
Every time. In the end, look, if you want to be the 48th season lead dog, sometimes you got to take some heat.
Right. You gotta take the heat. You just say this came from Don Fisher, not from me.
I'm telling you, Johnny Holiday said that. No, Johnny and I both confirmed it's from Don Fisher.
Oh my God! Hey, I heard that your part of your broadcast is brought to you by the Penn State golf courses.
Absolutely, and you.
So is Tom Hanna still around up there?
Yeah.
Coach Hanna, tell him I said hello.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely.
And Dwight Galt and all these other guys that used to be down here.
Yeah, absolutely. They think that. Believe me, they think the world of you. In fact, I'll say to DJ. He'll say, "How's Johnny Holiday doing?" He says, I say he's doing terrific, and he'll say, "Boy, I wish he was still our announcer." I said, "Deej."
Well, you tell Franklin I said hello too. He's one of my all-time favorites. I love James Franklin.
He thinks the world of you too, Johnny. Hey,
okay.
Sorry I'll miss you. I'm looking forward to the pizza. Should be great. And in fact, send me 2 slices.
Yeah, that'll really set the post office on fire. Huh?
Send me 2 slices because I'm going to forward one to Don Fisher.
He will go nuts, I guarantee it. We'll hear from him. If you do that, believe me, we'll get a call from him.
We will. Johnny, You're the greatest, my friend.
All right, Steve. Thank you, buddy.
Johnny Holiday. Some of that was about football. Some of it's just a couple of veteran guys who have known each other for 30-something years. I think the world of Johnny. All right. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors. 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Just received a text from the suit. Why can't you and I have a buddy relationship like that? All right. Check the mirror. Mirror's 2 R's, right? Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle with a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Also, a fabulous selection of pre-owned inventory, great service department, great deals to be had, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Joe Biden made a few comments moments ago.
Correct, yeah. Just calling for more patience. He wants all the votes to be counted. He addressed the coronavirus concerns real briefly. He's been starting to get briefed on that a little bit, despite not knowing the outcome yet. So those are just some of the real brief remarks he had.
All right. There you go. Okay, let's bring in Tyler Donahue, 24/7 Sports. Tyler, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Great to be back, and great to hear from you, Steve. Hope you're well.
I'm doing well, and I hope you're well. And I want to get now to what you've thought so far. You've seen this team in 2 games. Number one, they haven't won either one, but how good can they be, in your opinion? despite the fact they lost twice.
I mean, I still think there's a strong chance that Penn State, at the end of this whole 9 games and 9-week span that the Big Ten is putting together, I think there's still a good chance that they end up being the second-best team in the conference. The concern for them and the concern for everybody else in the Big Ten now and moving forward is how much of a gap is between Ohio State and everybody else on a consistent basis, on an annual basis. I think that was on display last week. That was a bit disheartening from a Penn State perspective. I also think it's important to remember that because of what happened between early August and mid-October, this team's talent capacity is a bit capped. Without those 2 running backs, I believe firmly that Noah Cain and Journey Brown were 2 of the best in the country. I think they would have had a chance to prove that. I thought Noah Cain, taking over as the number 1 guy going into the season, had a great chance to maybe lead all members of this conference in rushing yards. That's how highly I think of him. Without those guys and without your difference maker on defense and Micah Parsons, this is just kind of we have to view this through a different lens than we would have whether it was the day after the Cotton Bowl last year in Dallas or whether we're talking about this spring, even without spring practice, what we thought Penn State was going to be able to put on the football field. I think the biggest thing that you're looking at and maybe can determine this program's talent, this program's ceiling here in 2020 the rest of the way, is the development on the offensive side of things. What can you do with that offensive backfield? You know that Brown and Cain aren't available. We're not sure if Brown's going to be available at all. Cain will not be. So what can you make of that with the 2 freshmen and Devin Ford? And what's this relationship between Kirk Ciarrocca and Sean Clifford and really that entire quarterback room? How is that going to progress over the next 7 weeks? Is it going to become very clear that Sean Clifford is the guy and Sean Clifford is ready to maybe take that next step and this season and then into 2021 as a senior? Or is it going to be worth exploring what else you have on this roster at that position? Because you can do a lot of things, you can do a lot of great things, but you can't go to the college football playoff and win a game without a quarterback who's ready to get that done for you. And so that's directly tied to the new coaching staff at that position and certainly to what Sean Clifford is able to accomplish in these next 7 games.
Penn State had 3 touchdown drives of 75 yards in the second half. If you were to have said that to me before the game, I would have said, wow, this is great. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Now, we know how it played out. But what did you see in the second half offensively that can be a foundation potentially moving forward?
Well, I mean, Jahan Dotson, good for him. I mean, what a moment for him in a game that in a lot of ways was underwhelming for Penn State fans. I think you got a clear indication that this kid was ready to step up and be the top target in the passing game at wide receiver. To me, the jury was still out on that with Jahan Dotson. He had 40 career catches coming into this season. He had KJ Hamler to take some heat off of him last year, but he clearly was ready for this moment. I think that's big. And the same goes for Parker Washington. You hear a lot of preseason buzz about players on both sides of the football every year, maybe this year more than ever because the offseason was so long. This kid has lived up to it, I think, offensively. I really like what we see from him out of the slot. So to see those 2 guys step up against a team like Ohio State, what they have defensively is important. I also think Sean Clifford, being able to go through some of those reads, and to me, when he keeps his eyes downfield, that's when you have your best opportunity for him to deliver, for your receivers to be able to make plays. And I think overall, when you look and evaluate this offense, those long drives were about key throws, some third down throws, some big gains through the air. And it wasn't really leaning heavily on one guy in particular. Jahan Dotson came up with some magnificent plays, obviously, but you saw Pat Fryermuth, of course, being a factor, and I really like Parker Washington getting involved. But still, to me, the leaning on Sean as a runner has been surprising, and James Franklin said after the game, and then doubled down on that on Tuesday, that was the key part of their game plan. I don't know if anyone anticipated that would be the factor that it was under a new offensive coordinator here in piecing together those kind of drives that you just mentioned.
With all due respect, I did only because in watching the Ohio State tape coming in, they had been susceptible to that play. That's Adrian Martinez did that to them. They have been susceptible to that, and that's the only reason I just wanted that way the audience knows why they went the direction they did, because
Oh, I understand why, but you go back to Indiana and you're leaning on Clifford as a runner in so many ways, and I know that as the running back. But the last 2 years, we have not seen Penn State reach the final third of its regular season with a quarterback healthy enough to carry the offense, and that's my concern when you see Clifford taking this volume of shots this early in the season.
Tyler, the defense, which for the most part against Indiana played really well, but obviously on Saturday night it wasn't to the standard they want. What are you seeing with that defense, and how much did the first half loss of Jesse Luketa mean to that kind of performance?
I think we learned a lot more about Jesse Luketa's value to this football program, perhaps more than people were giving credit to. I'm a big believer in Jesse Luketa, not just as a football player, but as kind of a heart and soul player for your defense. Reminds me a little bit of Jason Kabinda and kind of the factor that he had on the field, off the field, as a guy players could turn to when things were going awry. So to lose him on this kind of stage and have to lean heavily on some of your younger guys, Lance Dixon, Brandon Smith. And by the way, I thought Brandon Smith did take a step forward. I know James Franklin said that on Tuesday, but he flashed. And when he's playing without that hesitancy, you see a different player, and you're kind of reminded this was the kid we saw on the football field down in Virginia during his high school career, being a Butkus Award finalist, flashing that athleticism. He got the best hit in on Justin Fields, made him feel that one, and prevented a big gain on the screen at one point. So that was promising to see. I think defensively you're still looking for someone who's going to be able to be a consistent game wrecker. Shaka Toney certainly did his best to try to close things out at Indiana and play Superman at the end of that contest. And Jason Owe was, microseconds away from having a huge statistical performance in that contest as well. But to this stage, you're still looking for someone to be able to take over a game defensively. I don't know if maybe that player will emerge early on. Maybe it's going to take some time over the course of the year for someone like a Brandon Smith to get comfortable, or Jason Owe to continue taking strides. But that's where you're really missing Micah Parsons, because across the way against Ohio State, you've got a true, genuine Heisman Trophy candidate, a player who can, create and do things with Justin Fields. And if there was one guy I felt like had a chance to nullify that, it was Micah Parsons, maybe one of a handful of guys in the country you could say that about. So I think we're still looking and still seeing who's going to gain confidence. But early on, if you're looking for bright spots, Brandon Smith, I think, took a step forward. I think Akeem Beamon has really emerged as that first defensive tackle off the sideline as a redshirt freshman. And another guy who has certainly validated the preseason buzz, I'm sure you might agree with this, is Joey Porter Jr.
Yes.
For 2 games, he looks every bit of the package that we were kind of sold during preseason. And I know a lot of folks were surprised that he surged to the starting job after redshirting last year, but very clearly this is not a player you can afford to keep on the sideline right now.
No, he is playing, and he's going to get better. And that's the great part about him, Tyler. He's going to get better. They've spent a lot of this. They opened the season on a 13-play, 64-yard drive. Then they fell behind 17-7. They have actually spent most of this season playing from behind. What would it mean to them, in your opinion, to see them jump to the lead and play with the lead on Saturday?
It would be huge just from a psychological standpoint. I think this is a program that it would feel tremendous, just like you'd feel it across the stadium, across the sideline, if they can open up, say, a 2-score lead early on in this game and be able to have their footing, because they've been kind of playing on roller skates early in these games, facing those deficits, dealing with problems, and this is a team that is a little bit limited on guys you can turn to, have been through the battles at the Big Ten level and have come out the other side. And so I think it would be a tremendous thing just from a psychological standpoint, but I also think it would give them an opportunity to see what they've got a little bit more in that running back room. I think Devin Ford could use a jolt of personal confidence. He had a really nice, flashy run in the first quarter against Ohio State, but outside of that was pretty well bottled up. And then Kevon Lee, Keziah Holmes out of that backfield. I think this is a game in which you'd like to establish yourself early on the scoreboard and then see what those guys can do for you over the course of this game. And not only that, but a lead in this game would give you a chance to maybe go deeper at rotations, get some redshirt freshmen, even some third-year sophomores out there, and just gain some experience, because unlike last year and every year before it, really, the non-conference play eliminated the ability to get feet wet early in the season, and you'd hate for injuries to have to result in guys getting on the field and not really knowing what a Big Ten football game feels like. this is a game where you look at the recent track record on the scoreboard. There should be opportunities in the second half of this game to get longer looks at guys, to get some films to scrutinize a little bit. But overall, I think it comes down to the confidence boost you would gain early in this game and coming out of the game with an impressive performance. I think if this is one where it's hanging in the balance and it's stressful in the fourth quarter, that's also going to tell us something about where Penn State is right now, and it's going to prevent you from opening some things up as a coaching staff and as a roster.
Tyler, I apologize for not remembering if you were at Indiana or not, so my apologies to you for that. But what was it like, if you were at Indiana, then combine that with what it was like for you seeing an empty stadium and a game being played in it?
Mark Brennan was at Indiana on behalf of our site, so he filled that seat for us, and we appreciated that. But
he was right next to our broadcast booth, so I got it.
But I'll tell you what, it was very strange. My first experience, going into Beaver Stadium. During the day, I was reminded of just my own videos. Sometimes social media says, hey, this it's easy to find things, and so just looking at some of the old whiteout game memories from videos and pictures I'd posted in recent years, it certainly was sad to see that not being the case, and you understand why it's the case, but it was just bizarre. It felt like a big game because you knew people across the country were watching it, and I had friends and family texting me over the course of the game, so you still had those big game vibes. But it didn't feel like it when you're actually in the stadium because the can noise, it was a little off. I know everybody's kind of trying to figure out how to deal with this,
right.
But hearing kind of the fake crowd noise come a few seconds after a stop was strange. And I was just thinking, you got the cluster of parents behind the bench. It reminded me of high school. I'm wondering if James Franklin is hearing from a parent saying, "Hey, put my kid in." I feel like you could. I was like, this is so strange. I haven't seen a setup like this since covering high school or being part of high school, where it's the only people there are a smattering of fans. Really, are the parents and family members. So, it's going to take some getting used to. I hope we don't have to get used to this long term, and I sure would love to be surrounded by those 110,000 other folks next time we have a chance to watch this team play Ohio State in Beaver Stadium.
You do a great job, Tyler. Really great job. Ask a lot of great questions at the press conference and do a fabulous job covering the team. Appreciate your time very much.
I greatly appreciate that, and glad that you get to come from football games this year. I know a lot more people than usual are tuning into your broadcast because they can't get in the stadium. So you do a great job as well. Thank you for that.
Hey, Tyler, appreciate that very much. Tyler Donahue, 24/7 Sports. We'll wrap it up with the Suits Caddy in a moment. What do you think, huh? Now, Doug Birdsong is the lead dog. He is.
Yes.
And the fact that the suit refers to Doug as his caddy bothers me.
Yeah, that's a violation.
Every day. All right, back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. All right, great to have you with us on the show today. Tomorrow we'll have our picks with the Kings. Some pretty intriguing games to talk about. I'm going to assume Minnesota, Indiana is going to make it. I'm going to assume Florida, Georgia is going to make it. Clemson, North Carolina. Then there'll be some NFL games that we'll talk about. Probably New Orleans and Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be a good football weekend.
It is. And the weather's going to be
Steelers-Cowboys, too.
Most of the games are going to be really good, so looking forward to it. Steelers going to run that team right out of the... Get out. To quote Joe, get out of here. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Yeah, but what strikes me is that the weather's going to be so nice this weekend. It's going to be up 70 degrees. So, with it being 70 degrees and a home football weekend, I've decided that now I won't nothing will be turned on until Thanksgiving, but I'm going to put up the outdoor lights this weekend. I mean, I've already stacked. Last weekend, I stacked 2 cords of wood. All right. I picked up all the leaves in the yard. Now there are going to be many more that are going to fall. But at least for the time being, for the moment, it's clean. So we'll put up the lights.
You know what? That's not a bad idea.
I mean, don't turn. I'm not going to turn them on until Thanksgiving night. But instead of standing out there and freezing and then looking at my hands saying, okay, why are they turning blue? Let's try this. Because I'll do this when it's warm like this, and people will drive by and they stare at me. What's he doing? Well, what's he doing? That's
and judging you too early for Christmas, blah, blah, blah.
And then, of course, Thanksgiving comes, and it's Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm just hitting a switch and the lights are going on, and I'm driving along, and these people are out there with 32 degrees going, I wish I was him.
That is very smart. Maybe I'll do the same thing.
It's only going to take me an hour to do. But you can just calmly go about it. Get yourself a beverage and set the whole thing up. And it's what I do is very simple. Very, very simple. There's nothing complicated about what I'm doing. I don't put up inflatables in the front yard and Snoopies and things like that. I don't do any of that stuff.
You're not all about that?
No, I mean, people that do it, it's fun, it's great. It's not what I do. It's not me. It's not me. Greg Nye, the Penn State golf coach, is going to join us an hour from now on the Penn State Coaches Show. James Franklin in the final half hour. Penn State will take on Maryland Saturday, 3:30 at Beaver Stadium, where I'm beginning at 2 o'clock. Well, that is the story for today. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors. 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Matt, have a good one. I'm back in an hour with the Penn State Coaches Show. And then the King is on the show tomorrow. And Dick Girardi. Breeders' Cup weekend. Talked to DJ today. I can quietly tell you that there is a non-conference basketball schedule. I just can't tell you who it's. I'm not allowed to say what dates and who yet, okay? Even though I know the dates and who.
Baby steps.
Okay? But they felt it was important that the two of us know. And we actually have half a hockey schedule, believe it or not.